Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to upstate New York as we're at Watkins Glen International. It's the host to race number 11 of Season 3 of the Dark Horse IndyCar Series, our third road course of the season on the road towards the Indianapolis 500 season finale and the crowning of a champion. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Matthew Rodriguez. And Matt, the top story coming into today obviously would have to be our top three in points because they've been our top three finishers in the last two road course races at Road America and Circuit of the Americas. But it's been Robert Maleska III that's been the one on top in both those races. Here today, though, he may have a little bit more competition because Watkins Glen, doesn't matter what type of a car you're in, pretty much every driver is going to be familiar with this configuration.
True. Honestly, I'm looking at Van de Sant today to finally kind of break through. I mean, we're looking at his stats from last season, and last season he almost put the entire field one lap down.
And not only that, but Van de Sant was top of the board in practice here today. So he obviously has a very fast race car, and he's come up just short if you consider the last two road course races as well to Maleska III. If we had, let's say, another, I would say 5 to 7 laps back at Road America, he probably could have gotten back up to the bumper of the 91 and battling for the win there. And then, of course, had a couple of spins back at Coda that took him out of the running of the victory there.
Well, you got to think, I mean, Van de Sant was tracking down Maleska here at the end of the Coda race, but realistically, Van de Sant was really pushing at the end of that race. Maleska was really just trying to nurse his lead, so it's a big difference here at Watkins Glen.
But let's throw another spanner into the works. How about the 72 of Eric Schaus, who is going to be today's pole sitter? Now, Schaus, we were just talking before we came on the air, he jumped up to second in practice and laid down a lap time that beat guys like Wagner and Van de Sant and Maleska III. So could we be looking at maybe, and no pun intended here, but a dark horse in today's field?
All right, I love the puns, but I'm looking at the past two results, at least what we had this season at Road America and Coda, and Schaus has a really good reputation of getting a good start, but just not piecing it all together and getting a good top 5, top 10 finish. So it'll be interesting to see if he has all the pieces today to kind of make the puzzle together.
As they're making their way here behind the pace car, take a look and notice that we are at the classic layout of Watkins Glen International. Most times drivers take the boot there, that right-hander into an immediate left-hander and then back onto the straightaway. That will not come into play here today. They will run the straightaway all the way down from turn 4 to turn 5. So that little bit of added extra speed heading into the carousel, that might trip these drivers up a little bit.
I'm going to tell you, I'd love to be in these cars. I've ever been the big old stock cars. Going 170 in that corner, that whole thing is going to fly off. These have plenty of downforce, which will not be an issue for them today.
Now, another thing that they will be having here today is road course yellows. We have yet to see a yellow flag come out in our two previous road course races. However, the corners are tighter. It's a somewhat shorter track in length. I don't know. I kind of get the feeling that if we have trouble break out at the front of the field, we may see our first road course yellow of the entire season.
I agree with that, because if you're looking at the corner almost coming out here right now, really, if someone gets sideways in this corner, blocks up half of it, there's almost nowhere to escape, nowhere to go to avoid, so that could easily trigger a caution.
And we've got, of course, with this restart, to start this race, the double file side by side, this heavy braking turn right, turn 1. We'll see if they get it settled out as the green flag is out. We're underway at Watkins Glen. You see them fanning out around the 5th position, double wide.
Oh, there's looks to be problems in the back. Not sure if that is. That may have been Moskowitz. No.
Joe McAdory, Craig Forsyth, Covey Moore were among some of those that were facing the wrong way. No caution, however. Everyone was able to snake their way through. Everyone got turned back the right direction. So despite the fact we had a bit of a stack up there, first lap, first corner, we still remain under the green.
And man, that's a way to kind of dash your confidence here at the beginning of the race. Get all ready, go into turn 1, and hey, maybe you get a little tap from behind, spin it around, and you just lost all that position you worked so hard to gain.
That's a couple of drivers, too, that are running very well in the point standings. Covey Moore, 8th in points. Craig Forsyth, 9th in the standings. And I guess if you're going to have an incident happen, have it happen early on here, because you've got 49 laps to be able to come back from an early incident. If you have a wreck or a spin take place late in the race, then you've run out of time for a recovery.
You know, I have to feel a little bit bad for Forsyth as we see him coming to pit road here. Forsyth has not had luck on his side this season. More or less, if it's a coin or a flip of a coin, he's getting the bitter end of the deal.
Yeah, he was a driver that we looked at coming here into Season 3 as one of the ones to maybe battle for the championship, coming off the momentum of winning the Indy 500 back in Season 2, as Gary Corley in the 7 also on pit lane here before even completing their second lap. Up at the front, Eric Schaus has about maybe 4 car lengths back to Robert Maleska III, and then another guy that I think we really have to keep tabs on here today, finished back-to-back third place in the 2 road course races so far this season. That's the 99 of Matt Wagner. Now, the reason why we got to keep an eye on him is because it's a runaway right now for the points lead, 150 points between Maleska III and Alex Van de Sant, but Matt Wagner right there on the back of Van de Sant for second place, only 8-point separation between those two.
Absolutely, and it's no secret, but currently Maleska is kind of running away with the points here. So it's definitely going to be a big recovery races. Hey, Maleska has won COTA and Road America, but hey, even if you can't prevent him from winning today, you need to be right behind him and stay with him the entire race.
Another thing that we saw happen back at the 2 previous road courses was pit strategy, but it took them a long time to get around those road courses, so a lot of times positions didn't really seem to change from the start of the green flag pit stops to the conclusion. Here today, though, I think there is plenty of opportunity, depending on when you come to pit road and how limited your mistakes are, that you can gain 2-3 positions on track from when you come to pit road to when you leave. Saw the Matt Wagner machine making his way around Gary Corley, who has now fallen a lap down. Craig Forsyth has returned back to the track. He is still on the lead lap, albeit about 27 seconds, or I'm sorry, make that 47 seconds behind the race leader.
It really looks like our closest battle on track here is for 7th. Almost looks like Jim Herrick and Eric Peterson kind of going at it here.
And something happened to Peterson there through the carousel, because Gale Brooks was able to actually get around him as well. And now he's under fire from the defending champion, Nick DeGroot, who, by the way, mentioned the defending champion, he has slowly been working his way up through the point stands. He's only been to victory lane once this season, a far cry from the 5 victories he picked up last year. But he's up to 4th in the standings after what was a rather dismal start to this 3rd season.
You know, I'm looking a little bit closely, or a little bit more close at Peterson.
DeGroot's on pit road. Sorry to cut you off, but DeGroot just actually hit pit road. I don't see how this can be a regularly scheduled stop for him.
Might be something amiss on that car. I'm just looking at it here, and I don't see any panels damaged at the moment.
We'll be more in the 15 down pit lane as well, and we only were able to jump back towards the tail end of the incident that happened back in the first lap. I almost wonder if maybe Nick DeGroot might have gotten a slight piece of that incident, and it was just affecting the handling of his race car, and he said, enough of this, I got to come down, I got to pit, get this thing at least somewhat back up to speed at 100%.
I see. Actually, he barely clipped Forsyth here at the beginning of the race, just knocked in the right. Now, it doesn't look like that much damage, but probably just affecting the aero in that car.
Yeah, there's a couple of areas here at Watkins Glen that you wouldn't necessarily think are very aero dependent, but one right here, this back straightaway, if you will, from turns 4 down to 5, with not having that dog leg, that boot breaking it up. Long straightaway area, you want to have as much speed as possible. And then another straightaway that our race leader Eric Schaus is going to come to, and this is off turn 5 down to turn 6. So there are a couple of places where you want those front wings especially to be completely straight, the way they need to be to give yourself the maximum straightaway speed.
You know, I'm looking back at Eric Peterson. He just doesn't look 100% comfortable with his car. I mean, I've seen him kind of turn in the corners and almost slightly regret his move and kind of moved it back, and just doesn't look like he can take the corners as fast as everyone else can.
Well, if you remember, Matt, when we called the race back at Circuit of the Americas, he also looked somewhat unsteady there. A lot of corners he went through, it looked like he was sliding through them, so road courses may not be his forte.
That's true. I'm looking here at Van de Sant, and Van de Sant's trying to slowly track down Wagner here. Now, here's the big question is, Obviously, with a lot of these long straights, hey, you're already hitting your rev limiter. You're kind of stuck in place as you are. But these corners, I mean, how much do you think these corners are really going to be vital to these drivers?
Well, I think that they're going to be vital, especially with corner exit. As I said, with these straightaways here, if you can at least be within striking distance, then you've got a shot to be able to make a pass. Another thing we haven't mentioned is with it being the road course configuration, these drivers do have the 10 push-to-passes here during the course of this 50-lapper. A couple of drivers have actually already used up a number of their push-to-passes. Kristen Nelson's used up 4, Charles Teed has used up 3, and Matt Wagner, running third place, has used up 2. As a matter of fact, I believe our race leader just used 1, Eric Schaus in the 72 through the S's.
Yeah, it looks like Maleska barely got inside of 1 second, and Schaus decided just to use one, see if he can maybe make up just a little bit more ground on him.
Battle's going to be for third place. Matt Wagner, about half a second, which only translates to about maybe 3.5 car lengths back to Alex Van de Sant. And one thing we got to remember here with Van de Sant as well, we talked about the fact that he finished runner-up in the first 2 road course races this season, but if we go back again to Circuit of the Americas, he was the fastest car on the long run. And so I think as we start to get further and further into this race, closing in on the possible first round of green flag pit stops, I think that's where you're going to start to see him shine in terms of his lap times. Looking right now, if you look at him in relation to the other drivers inside of the top 4, that last time by, he ran the second fastest lap. We're looking at the fastest lap. That was Matt Wagner with a 54.3.
You know, I actually started taking a look at what Wagner was doing on the back straightaway because I keep noticing that Van de Sant, even though he has a draft, even though he's kind of the better car in this situation, is not really gaining that much time. I'm noticing that Wagner's really taking advantage of all the track. If you notice here, as they go into the turnoff, he's actually turning left a little bit to take advantage of the extra, almost asphalt, to arc into the corner better. While I looked at Van de Sant, and he's pretty much keeping it very shallow into the corners.
There's a couple of areas here, not many, but a few areas that have that little bit of extra runoff. I'm not necessarily certain if in an Indy car you'd want to use that runoff because you'd actually have to shoot your car up over the rumble strip to get to that. And of course, with how low these cars are to the ground, not sure you'd want to risk some underneath suspension damage.
I mean, that's always the big risk versus reward is, hey, if you're trying to track down the guy in front of you, if he's not using it, hey, let me see if I can use it. Let me see if I can have something that he doesn't. And hey, it does let you overrun track a little bit, but hey, it comes at a cost, which is easily grip and possible damage.
Drop back to the guy that's currently holding down the final spot inside the top 5, and that is Jim Herrick. Good performance here early on for the 57. We were looking at last season here at Watkins Glen, some of the guys to watch that had decent outings. Alex Van de Sant, actually the defending winner of this race. Craig Forsyth and Nick DeGroot, who were involved in that incident in turn 1, lap 1, they were 2nd and 3rd. And really, you'd have to go all the way down towards the latter half of the top 10 to find other drivers that are in the field here tonight. AJ Musselman, Jim Brooks, Benjamin Combs, and Charles Teed finished 7th through 10th here a year ago.
Absolutely. I actually just started taking a look at the recent stats, and I see Schaus actually has been the bridesmaid twice this season. Neither was on a road course, which kind of surprised me with his dominance here very early on. It was at Phoenix and also at Auto Club earlier this season where he was a bridesmaid twice.
And Schaus, with starting on the pole here today, was his 2nd pole of the season, but he's only 5th in the standings. Looking at the 76 of Jim Brooks, we were just talking about him coming off a top 10 at this track 1 year ago. He was just on pit lane in the 76.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the pit stop was for, whether it was regularly scheduled or just something that he decided to do.
Looking in terms of the amount of time he spent on pit road, a tick under 8 seconds. I'm not really certain why he would come to pit road this early. My assumption is just based off what we know with road courses, we're probably going to see these drivers try and split this race into probably, I would say, 2010 maybe? Something like that?
Some guys try to really work these race strategies backwards where instead of thinking of it from, hey, my fuel tank may take me 15, 20 laps. All right, let me look at the end of the race. Let me see, like, hey, well, I mean, I need this pit. I'll have 5 laps of fuel, I'd be deficit. Let me pit, 5 laps early off my regularly scheduled pit stop. So we're going to try something different in strategy. And just looking back through Jim Brooks's pretty much finishes at these road courses, mean, 5th or 13th at Coda, 15th at Road America. He's definitely hoping for a change in at least a little bit of change in pace race.
Matt Wagner's feeling the pressure for third place as they make their way around a slower machine. I think that was Joe McAdory in the 4, who's now fallen a lap down, but that actually that opened up that battle for third place. I think Van de Sant had a little bit of trouble getting around the 4 car through turn 1. He had Matt Wagner closed in by 2 car lengths, and as I said, Wagner's been feeling the pressure because he has now used 4 of his push-to-passes. Van de Sant hasn't used any.
Yeah, notice you saw it on your screen. I also saw it on mine. Wagner and Nelson really have been the 2 that have been really aggressive with the push-to-pass system.
Mr. Nelson's already used 6 push-to-passes here, and we aren't even a third of the way through today's event, as looked like another driver went a lap down. That was Craig Forsyth. That's another thing that we were talking about pre-broadcast as well. With it being a shorter track, we're going to see race leader, whether it be Eric Schaus now or whoever is the race leader towards the end of this race, dealing with slower traffic. You're going to catch traffic a lot sooner here today than you did the 2 previous road courses.
Well, let me pick your brain a little bit. If you were racing here in these cars, would you want to use your push passes early on when cars are maybe more close together, less dependent on pit strategy, trying to make up as much time as possible then, and then, hey, I'm at a deficit later in the race, so you would like them to save them to the end of the race, seeing if you can possibly make some moves, even though you won't be within 1 second of car to activate it?
Well, I mean, as we said before, we thought there was the possibility we could end up having a full course yellow come out for the first time at a road course this season. Now that's out the window. So to answer your question, yes, you'd want to use your push to passes early on in the race when everyone's close together, because the field's just going to get spread out, and then you've got these push to passes and nothing to be able to do with them. However, I'm going to go back into the case of Matt Wagner. I don't understand using 4 of them just to stay ahead of Alex Van de Sant. It kind of seems to defeat the purpose of a push to pass, to pull away from somebody this early on, when instead you could let them on by, just keep close tabs on them, and have 10 push to passes available to use if you stay close to them, around the midway portion of this race, or just before green flag pit stops.
I mean, you got to think of the big picture here, where he could also be trying to keep Van de Sant behind him. Obviously, he's 8 points behind Van de Sant. They're both trying to mount a charge towards Maleska here for the end of the season. But could this be a strategy call and just seeing, hey, if I can keep him behind me right now, maybe he'll burn up his stuff. Maybe I can get a little bit of extra ground on him.
Maybe. Well, he's still got 6, so it's still a pretty hefty amount that he has left over. So it's not as if he's used up 7 of his push-to-passes like Kristen Nelson already has. Not even 20 laps in, and she's only got 3 push-to-passes left.
Hey, gotta go fast.
I mean, at this point in time, I think what she's trying to do is stay ahead of Eric Peterson. So it almost looks like the push-to-pass is more of a defense mechanism today than offensive mechanism.
And that's the big thing, where you see these cars going down the straightaways, and hey, obviously the rear car is going to have more of the advantage, having more of the draft, more of the kind of the arrow working to your advantage. How are you to defend against that? Well, when you're within 1 second of a car, you can easily activate push to pass. Gives you about 15 extra horsepower, gives you a little boost. And that will help you pretty much negate what the draft is doing from the guy behind you. Now, that isn't going to stop the guy behind you from activating push to pass to pretty much pull back even with you, but it just gives them options.
About 10 seconds away from being put a lap down are Nick DeGroot and Dylan Moskowitz. So Eric Schaus picking them up and putting them down. Right now, only 14 of our 19, like that 20 drivers that took the green flag to start this race are on the lead lap. We're looking at Robert Maleska III. Amazingly enough, we're at a road course, and it's really the first time since the drop of the green flag that we're mentioning his name. He comes in the points leader, but there's a lot more to it than that. He, last week, picked up his 6th win of the season at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and he's on a winning streak of 4 straight races. He's trying to go 3 for 3 at the road courses, but right now, he is running nearly 2 seconds behind race leader Eric Schaus.
I mean, every driver will tell you, hey, I mean, it isn't important if I sweep all the road courses, but there's a certain level of just kind of bragging right, saying, hey, I mean, I'm always a threat when it comes to the road courses, or hey, those are easy wins for me. So I think he may be going for a little bit of prestige here.
I think I'm also noticing here as well, there's been a couple of passes up here inside of the top 10, but there really haven't been many. I mean, we're looking here at 2nd, 3rd, and 4th with Maleska, Wagner, and Van de Sant. They're all still running single file. It's not really looking like any one of them is getting a run on the other. The gap has remained the same between these 3 for the last 3, 4, 5 laps. Something saying to me, pit road is going to be the deciding factor into who's going to finish.
Oh, look at Van de Sant.
Never mind, there's a pass. Van de Sant heard me. He's like, yep, we can pass here at Watkins Glen. He's just going to move into the podium.
I think Wagner may have been taking it a little bit easy to give Maleska just a little bit of room, and Van de Sant obviously took advantage of that. Didn't even use a push to pass.
He didn't. I was just going to say, for those wondering, he did that just based off of the run he got off of 4 and down that straightaway with the draft. Never used a push to pass, still has all 10 available.
Now, obviously, this puts Wagner in a very tough position because, again, he used up 4 push to passes just trying to stay ahead of Van de Sant. Obviously, hey, that plan of using up those push passes really only work if you stay in front of the guy. So now that you're behind him, you're really at a big deficit.
Let's take a look at the lap times by our top 4 last time around. Race leader Eric Schaus, 54.7. So obviously he's still the faster one out there. But of these 3 drivers, Van de Sant, oh my goodness.
Van de Sant's on a mission.
I'd be worried if I'm Eric Schaus. I think I want more than 3 seconds between me and this 317 because the way he's been able to get that speed on that straightaway between 4 and 5, he is coming and coming fast.
I wonder what Maleska's thinking right now. He's sitting here like, that man just passed me straight up.
He did indeed. Yeah, there's no way to argue that point, and he did it without the aid of that extra push to pass speed. Now trying to cut into the 3-second lead. That last time by, he was a half second quicker than race leader Eric Schaus. And let's not forget too, Van de Sant has the experience of taking a checkered flag here at Watkins Glen. He did it 1 year ago, so he knows the ins and outs of this racetrack and what his car is capable of.
So now it's important to mention that now, since we're getting a little bit closer to pit stops, it's kind of bringing back that, hey, I mean, obviously we saw it at COTA. We're taking the amount of fuel that you deem necessary, taking tires when you deem necessary. Those are just fractions of a second that can add on. Hey, these IndyCar pit stops last about 8 seconds, 7 seconds if you take a little bit less fuel, but those seconds matter on and off of pit roads. You're going pit road speed the entire way down. Another thing is limiting mistakes. Even though you have a pit limiter on these cars, you can easily overcook it in the pit road, just trying to gain up as many seconds as you can, get a black flag. Hey, I mean, that's really put a damper on your race.
Dylan Moskowitz was just about to be put a lap down by race leader Eric Schaus. Now he is going to hit pit lane, and this is around the time that I was expecting to maybe see a number of drivers hit pit lane for their first round of scheduled pit stops somewhere around the lap 20 mark.
Man, Seth, I'll tell you, I was really scared about Schaus right now. Van de Sant managed to track down about a second on Schaus there in the last few laps.
That last time by, 54.9 for Schaus, 54.5 for Van de Sant. And you can see him right there in the same camera shot. As a matter of fact, Matt Wagner has been able to get around Maleska the third to move into the 3rd position, dropping the 91 back to 4th. And both Van de Sant and Wagner have opened up nearly a second and a half back to that 91 machine. Looks like the 91's pace dropping off just a little bit here.
That could be due to varying amounts of reasons. Hey, maybe just a little bit of brain fade, just overrun the track a little bit. Obviously, the second scenario is, hey, maybe just trying to save tires, save fuel just a little bit, maybe open up a little bit of wider fuel window for him. And then third is maybe he overcooked it in the first run and maybe his tire's a little bit overheated. Maybe he's a little bit low on fuel. Could be anything.
One thing about Art Maleska III that we were talking about is the point scenario, 150 points over second in the standings, Alex Van de Sant. And I mean, there is every possibility, as we were speculating, there's every possibility that, you know, if he's able to finish decently enough here today, finish decent next week at Kentucky, and then maybe score a top 10 at the Milwaukee Mile, I mean, we would still have 4 or 5 races left to go in the season. He could already have the championship locked up as early as then.
Yeah, and that's very scary to some of these guys, saying like, hey, I mean, we've only done, at least at this point, 11 races, and he could walk away with this entire thing 5-6 races early. That's not what anyone wants to see. As you just saw Musselman get lapped there. Musselman's had a very up and down season.
He definitely has. Musselman actually was a driver that had a somewhat decent outing, if I recall correctly, last year, 7th place. He finished here at Watkins Glen 1 year ago, so we were kind of looking at him to be one of those drivers up in the latter half of the top 10 today. It's not been the case, and we also had the 86 of Todd Schneider come to pit road for a green flag pit stop, so I think we're going to start to see some of our others come to pit lane. I thought maybe they might have to come to pit road twice, but If they're able to make it at least a lap 25, then it's only a one-stop race for these guys here at
Schaus
Watkins
coming
Glen.
in.
And now the question is this too early? Can he make it the rest of the way? Is he going to be 3 laps short? Maybe Alex Van de Sant can give us an idea. If any of these guys can make it 25 laps, then it might just be a one-stop.
Well, we got to remember the undercut is strong. If Schaus plans this out correctly, he can easily come out with a very generous lead on Van de Sant. But if he does it incorrectly, Van de Sant could easily overtake him.
Matt Wagner followed Eric Schaus down pit road. Gail Brooks has just hit pit lane along with Charles Teed. So at least 4 of our top 10 on pit road this lap, as Van de Sant about to come around and complete his 24th lap. He stayed out along with the 91 of Robert Maliska III and the 57 of Jim Herrick.
You know, it's extremely understated what these lap cars really do to the leaders and do to the top 10. Now, many people don't really think of lap cars having that big of an effect, maybe an adverse effect. But what they allow them to do is, again, push to pass can be activated whenever you're within 1 second of a car in front of you. Now, that doesn't really mean just lead lap cars. It also means lap cars. So if you're really trying to track someone down and you hit almost within 1 second of a lap car, you could easily activate a push to pass, help you get a little bit closer.
Looks like Van de Sant at least is going to make it to the conclusion of lap 25. Now it's going to be interesting to see if anybody stretches it past lap 25.
Oh, wreck on the front straightaway. Jim Herrick is involved. Looks like Moskowitz was involved as well.
And this may have been an attempt to get to pit lane gone wrong.
Actually, it looks
Herrick
like
was running third at the time.
Yeah, it looks like Herrick may have overcooked it into the final corner a little bit, spun out when he was trying to at least slide and save it. He overcorrected into the outside wall. And unfortunately, the guys behind him, Todd Schneider, Dylan Moskowitz, and I think Schaus may have been a little bit affected. Actually, I don't even know if Schaus lifted. Oh, it looks like he may have lifted just a little bit, but he managed to get through it unscathed.
Alex Van de Sant is down pit lane, and here comes Robert Maliska III to do the same. So they are going to make it a total of 25 laps on what they had in the tank. This is a big question mark now, because now the question is, did they just split the race in half on purpose? Could they have gone any further? Or is 25 laps the furthest these drivers can really go? Because I'd be a little bit worried about some of these guys here, like Eric Schaus and Matt Wagner, who were on pit road 2 laps ago. I mean, are they anywhere from a lap to a lap and a half short on fuel?
So the important part is I'm really looking here. And Schaus did a 7.8 second pit stop. And Van de Sant just did a 9.3 second stop. So what could be happening is Schaus could be under fueling just a little bit, taking 4 tires, just enough to get, or just enough fuel that as soon as his tires are done, just driving out. He could be maybe banking on an extra pit stop. Since he has a lighter car, maybe fresher tires, he can't go as long, but he can always make another pit stop very quickly and hope to make up the difference with fresh tires.
Are we talking about the advantage of the undercut? Because Eric Schaus looks in his rearview mirror and Alex Van de Sant is there. These two pitted 2 laps apart, and Van de Sant, despite pitting that later moment than Schaus did, he gained on the 72.
I mean, it's as strong as a wet paper towel. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad.
So now Van de Sant looking to get to the race lead here without the aid of green flag pit stops. He was out in front when Schaus came to pit lane, but now he's trying to see if he can get up there and pass the 72. And a little update on the push to passes used. Well, Eric Schaus in that 72, he's already used 4, and that was only in the last 5 to 7 laps.
Absolutely. I'm just looking throughout the field. Still the passes to use is Krista Nelson with 2. He managed to use 8 in the first 27 laps of this race.
So we're now into pretty much the run to the finish, I would assume, provided everybody that made their green flag pit stops here can make it the rest of the way. Eric Schaus, the thing I'm wondering here too, let's speculate that maybe, just maybe, there is a lap short for Eric Schaus to make it to the checkered flag. I would think that there are a couple of areas here on the racetrack where you're off the throttle so much that maybe you can save that extra lap.
There could be, but obviously without the bus stop that we're so used to, more or less it becomes very harder because there's not very much off throttle time. You're really heavily on throttle, and of course, Van de Sant's not really going to let Eric Schaus have that breathing room. He doesn't want him to save gas, even if he had the chance.
Saw Nick DeGroot come into pit lane. This is a regularly scheduled stop for the defending champion since he was on pit road back on lap 3. So this is his final pit stop of the day. Give a call out to Gale Brooks, right now holding down the 5th position. Solid outing here today, and really been one of those drivers that has snuck out top 10s here and there. 6 top 10s in the 10 races we've run so far, 9th in the point standings, and right now with the drivers that he's been around in standings like Kobe Moore and Craig Forsyth run into issues, could be holding the 8th position in points all to himself heading to Kentucky next week.
True, and Gale's another one of those guys who had a great up and down season. I mean, started off strong, 10th at 10th at Auto Club, 6th at Iowa, then had some down weeks at Atlanta and Road America, pulled back at Texas, and another down week at Phoenix. It's been a roller coaster season for him. He's just hoping for a strong finish.
We'll cycle through the rest of the top 10 here after pit stops. We saw Jim Herrick had that little bit of an issue getting onto pit road for his stop, but he was able to come down, take his pit stop, leave, and currently holds down the 6th position. And a good run right now as well for our Iowa winner, Charles Teed, right now holding down 7th place.
Absolutely. Teed's had an up and down last few weeks. I mean, I think remember at Gateway, he was, I believe he was racing with Van de Sant. It could have been Van de Sant, I'm not positive. Racing with Van de Sant, blocked all the way down to the inside, and Van de Sant let his thoughts be known about that, and that resulted in the end of Teed's race, but Teed's bounced back very slowly.
I know we've been documenting the fact that a lot of push-to-passes have been used up early on by Krista Nelson, but hey, she's still running in 8th place on the lead lap, so we're kind of questioning the strategy of using up the push-to-passes early, but so far it seemed to work out.
Well, it goes back to what we were saying, which is, hey, maybe if you're planning your strategy around it, using your push passes early, trying to get as much an advantage on your competition as possible over cuts thing, that could work. Now, the biggest concern is seeing Jim Brooks behind her, and Jim Brooks has a full 10 push passes left. That could either be he forgot what button his push pass was, or he's saving it till later in the race.
Well, let's not forget as well, Jim Brooks pitted early back or in the first 10 laps, so he still has to come to pit lane at least one more time before the conclusion of this race.
And that's the big decider, which is pit stops. You see Wagner's trying to work his way past some lap cars here at the moment.
That would be, I believe,
Peterson.
Is that Josh Garner and Peterson? Yeah. That's 11th and 12th. Actually, I'm not sure what just happened to Josh Garner. He appears to be off the pace. Oh, yeah, he's got some damage on the left front of that wing.
Yeah, I'm seeing some promotion in the driver's chat about it. I can't exactly hear anything here at the moment, but it definitely seems like there might have been some disagreement here.
Yeah, Josh Garner, last I looked, was running up in the 10th position, and he's now lost spots to lap down machines Nick DeGroot, Eric Peterson, and Craig Forsyth. Going to lap down himself, he actually just lost a spot here to AJ Musselman, as I think he's coming to pit lane to get that damage repaired. So we definitely did have some sort of an incident take place here.
Absolutely. As it looks like currently Schaus is keeping a pretty good advantage on Alex here. I'm not exactly sure what the strategy is here, whether Alex is just trying to save gas, save fuel, save fuel, save tires, or Schaus is really just going all out and just trying to get away from him.
I'm wondering if it's the case of Eric Schaus maybe being a little bit short on fuel. Go hard now, open up as big a gap as you can, and then try and manage it while saving fuel at the end of this race. He's got about 2.5 seconds back to Alex Van de Sant, and right now, the last couple of laps, he's been anywhere from 1.5 to 0.2 faster than the 3:17.
Yeah, Van de Sant's definitely not letting Schaus go, but still keeping times very comparable to Schaus.
Best battle on track right now would be starting to close up for the 6th position. That's where Jim Herrick looks back and sees Charles Teed about maybe 3 car lengths off his back bumper.
I'm going to tell you, at these road courses, you'll get into such a rhythm that when you finally start running up on a car in front of you, or if a car runs up on the back of you, that really can throw you out of your rhythm where, hey, you're knocking down these fast laps by solo. But when your line is taken away, when the line that you may have been running for the last 10, 15 laps or is occupied by another car, that can really throw you off, and that's where mistakes really start to show their head.
Well, Watkins Glen is known mostly, I think, for the stock car racing that takes place here. And even those cars have difficulty finding areas to make passes cleanly. The speeds that these drivers carry down into these tight corners, I mean, we saw off turn 4 seem to be a very favorite passing zone for Alex Van de Sant early on in this one, but I'm not really sure if there are any fully designated areas that are normally considered passing zones that these IndyCar drivers are able to utilize.
I mean, Watkins Glen is a highly, or I don't really know if very many people would think of it as this, but it's a very technical track. Now, here's the big thing. It's definitely a lot harder to pass when you don't have the aerodynamics of a brick. But with these cars, it really amplifies any mistakes. Where, hey, it's extremely aerosensitive, and the guy behind you, even fractions of a second, can really add up and give him the window and opportunity. As you see Teed slowly trying to work on Herrick here. Obviously, he knows he can't really follow Herrick's almost line here because he'll end up either running into him or not having an optimal passing line. But he's easily just trying to hang with him, seeing if he can get a better opportunity here.
I think what he was trying to do there was run a different line through the S's, see if he could get better run by the time they exit out of turn 4 to maybe get the momentum down that straightaway here into the carousel turn 5. Just wasn't close enough to be able to make that move, so he'll try again here this lap. And that's the other thing too, is, you know, it's one thing to make a pass and complete it. It's another thing to set it up. I mean, a pass in one corner could take anywhere from 5 to 10 laps to set up.
And Todd Schneider just showed the difficulty of a car coming to pit road when you're in a battle. Obviously, that bottom lane on the last corner is almost a pit road lane where if you're pitting, you got to stay down there. And that could really throw some of these drivers off because there's not really a protected lane. That's the optimal lane for that corner. And if there's a car there, hey, you got a split second to make a decision to get out of the way, and that could easily aid the guy behind you.
Well, this race has flown by. As we said, this is not exactly one of your bigger road courses at Watkins Glen. And we've only got 15 laps to go as we've run 35 laps under the green flag. No cautions to break it up, and there will be no more trips to pit road, at least we think, for all of our front runners. This is basically the run to the checkers, and we've entered the point of this run, much like we saw back before that round of green flag pit stops, Matt. The 3:17, his lap times, they're starting to pick up. He's starting to come to life. He's closed up what was 3.5 seconds now to a tick under 3.
And that's easily, you got to think in the back of your head of, hey, I mean, obviously you want to go all out when you have new tires, but you got to think, I mean, the tires will heat up, the tires will start to lose grip. Alex is playing the better game where it's almost, he's trying to lay back intentionally on early runs, trying to preserve the tire for later in the run where you have less grip. Hey, I mean, anything you do early in the run to try and aid yourself, give yourself more grip later in the run, you'll be thanking yourself about 15 laps later.
Well, Van de Sant, the last 2 road course races, has finished bridesmaid, but it's been to Robert Maleska III. Right now, the 91 runs back in the 4th position, 20 seconds behind Van de Sant. He's now got a new target this week. It's the 72 of Eric Schaus, and that last time by, actually, Eric Schaus was able to open up the gap a little bit more, so I almost wonder if maybe Van de Sant might be trying a little too hard.
I mean, we saw that in the Dakota race, where Van de Sant was just pushing himself so hard where he just amplified his mistakes. Again, the issue with the lap car wasn't his fault. It was really just bad timing in a bad place. But seeing him on that final last few runs to the green or the checkered flag, we saw him out of that last corner really just push way too hard, spin it around. That's the thing that can really get you in trouble here. If you know they're in a hole. But the big goal here is not to dig yourself in a bigger one.
Well, as we said, Jim Brooks was going to have to pit before the conclusion of this race. He did so 3 laps ago. Oh, we've had an issue with Eric Peterson. He's looped it around off of turn 1.
And Peterson, man, he had a good race today. I think he may have been a little bit too focused on the 4 car of McAdory behind him and maybe just sent it a little bit too hot in that corner.
Going to lose him, I think, 1 position. I think he was running in 10th. Loses the spot to Greg Forsyth and drops outside the top 10 to the 11th spot. Is Eric Schaus now going to go to work on Krista Nelson? If he completes the pass, which he does, that now leaves us with 7 drivers on the lead lap. And I was going to mention, with Jim Brooks coming to pit road, that now moves Nick DeGroot up to 9th and Craig Forsyth up to 10th, albeit those 2 drivers being off the lead lap.
I mean, big... Much kudos to Nick DeGroot and Craig Forsyth. I mean, they were involved in that first lap incident, first lap, first turn. Both of them had to come in about first lap or at the end of the first lap, get damage repaired. They've both had a strong rally back inside the top 10.
Gap closed up that time. Closed up by 0.4. It's now 2.6 seconds between Eric Schaus and Alex Van de Sant, and actually the two of them are on the same straightaway there, coming off the carousel turn 5. You could see both of them in the same camera shot. One car left for Van de Sant to pass, that being Kristen Nelson, before he can then have clean racetrack between himself and Eric Schaus. And, we've been talking about the race leaders having difficulty getting around those slower machines, but how about those slower machines as well, and the tough task they have of trying to find an area to safely move out of the way of the race leaders?
That's the big part of Watkins Glen. Even though it looks so big, it is extremely small in terms of a road course. There's not very much ample opportunity to get out of the way. Obviously, you don't want to pull fully out of the way because that's going to lose you time. But obviously, all these race leaders want their preferred line. If you're in the front of the pack, I mean, you want to keep putting time. Obviously, Schaus doesn't want to get any closer to Van de Sant. Van de Sant says, hey, come here. So obviously, you're just going to try and get yourself on that preferred line. That's when a lap car can really throw you out of your rhythm.
Van de Sant getting around Kristen Nelson. He's now got 3.2 seconds between himself and Eric Schaus, and we've got a driver on pit road from the top 5. That's the 71 of Gail Brooks for what looks like a regularly scheduled stop. Don Moskowitz is in as well. Matt, I don't think these guys can make it.
They could be just trying to short pit. Maybe they had a little bit of fuel and they're just trying to top off, see if maybe we can try something different.
Not sure why you would do that, especially if you're Gail Brooks. I mean, you were en route to a top 5 finish, and now Gail's going to drop all the way back at least to the 9th position with this pit stop. Another driver just hit pit road, the 12 of Josh Garner. Now, he got front-end damage about 15 laps ago, so this can't be a regularly scheduled stop for him. But it's going to be interesting to now keep an eye on some of our other front runners inside of the top 5, because if Gail Brooks indeed cannot make it to the conclusion of this race, I almost wonder about Eric Schaus as well as Matt Wagner, because they were some of the first to hit pit lane when the green flag pit stops began.
I mean, you got to keep it in mind of, hey, I mean, if you're on the same strategy as the leaders and you're not getting any time, I mean, maybe try something different. Shake it up a little bit. Yes, it could lose you time, but hey, if strategy works out in very odd ways, maybe it can really pay off.
Well, it was looking like Van de Sant was going to be reeling in Eric Schaus, as Eric Peterson's actually on pit road now in the 36. But that last time by, Eric Schaus turned up the heat again. He now has nearly 4 seconds between himself and the 317.
Wagner almost got driven to the side of by Josh Gardner.
And Wagner, was that a move of displeasure there, letting the 12 car know I didn't appreciate that? Just kind of weaving the car down the straightaway? No, he's coming to pit road.
I mean, usually, at least in my code, that's a little bit of a sign of displeasure, but obviously interesting seeing him come to pit road.
Oh, remember, he was one of the drivers that I was talking about that was one of the first ones on pit lane. And the 72, is he out of fuel? He just pulled it off to the side of the S's and is teleported to pit road.
Just taking a look here. I didn't hear the engine die out, but I'm just a double check here. It could have been an equipment failure.
He just came to a dead stop. And
yeah, it's out of fuel. I heard it. It was dying. The engine was dead.
I'm finding this so odd, though, as well, because most drivers were able to make it 23 to 25 laps on what they had in the tank. For Eric Schaus, they must have not gotten that thing completely full of fuel, because he should have been able to at least make it another 4 laps before coming to pit lane, and ran out of fuel there.
Yeah, it sounded like he still had a little bit of fuel in the tank, but I think he may have decided that he just didn't have enough to come back.
That's turned the race lead now over to Alex Van de Sant, and we've reversed the roles from the 2 previous road courses. It's now Van de Sant over Maleska III. The gap is 23 seconds between those two.
If I was Wagner, I'd be sitting here like, hey, when am I going to get my turn?
Exactly. Well, I think we've got at least 1, maybe 2 more road courses that we're going to this season. No, only 1 more. They're going to be going in April to Silverstone, and that'll be the last opportunity for Matt Wagner to try and pick up a road course win. Alex Van de Sant still trying to pick up a road course win. He's about 6 laps away from doing so if he has enough fuel to make it to the conclusion.
And here comes the big kind of you gotta change your mindset here. Van de Sant was really keen on trying to track down that 72 of Eric Schaus. Obviously, with him having issues, you've got to change it to, all right, instead of me trying to track someone down, I need to go into conservation mode. Right now, he's got about a 23-second lead on Robert Mileska. Obviously, Mileska's a fast guy, and he knows pit strategy. But you kind of have to play the game a little bit and say, hey, I mean, I can't be running hot laps every lap because that's really going to run down my stuff. It's really going to run me down on fuel.
Eric Schaus has returned back to the track. He is 1 lap down. The driver that started from the pole has led the most laps here today. Right now is mired back in the 11th position, as it will be 5 laps to go here with the 3:17 hitting the start-finish line. Now there's about a little more than 5 seconds between second and third, but with Matt Wagner having those fresher tires after being on pit lane 2 laps ago, the battle for second place may be our best battle, if I can say it, inside of the top 5 coming down to the checkered flag.
Here's my big question. If I'm trying to figure out who has what up their sleeve. So obviously I'm seeing Mileska here. Mileska actually pit, it looks like either on the same lap or 1 lap after Alex did. So I'm trying to figure out if maybe he has something else planned.
I believe they pit on the same lap. The pit stop time was about 0.7 of a second difference to the advantage of Van de Sant, and he holds 23 seconds over the 91 of Robert Mileska third. Also, an interesting thing to note, both those drivers still have all 10 of their push-to-passes. They have not used one yet this race.
I'm kind of in the crew that obviously if you use all of them before the end of the race, I feel like I wasted them. If I have some left at the end of the race, I feel like I underused them.
Charles Teed has, after all this, moved up into the top 5 and 5th. Jim Herrick has moved up to 4th. That's going to be some solid points days for both of those drivers, but the top 3 that have finished first, second, and third in the first 2 road course races are running top 3 here again, just in a slightly different order, as coming around through the final corners this time, it will be 3 laps to go for the 3:17 of Alex Van de Sant, and I've been looking in terms of his lap times. They have backed down just a little bit. That last time around, he ran about 4/10 slower than Robert Mileska III. Now, I don't know if this is an indication that the 91 speed is picking up because he's going a little bit harder, or if the 3:17, since he's got some space to work with, if he's backing his pace down just a little bit.
Here's also another odd one to pick your brain at. Obviously, some guys really, it's kind of weird, but some guys do better trying to chase someone down than they do leading the pack. Could that possibly be affecting him?
Could possibly be a factor, but now I'm not so certain because Charles Teed just came to pit road from the 5th position. Apparently, he couldn't make it on fuel.
Definitely some differing strategies here. I wonder if some guys maybe just be running too hard.
It doesn't make sense to me, I'll tell you that much, because if a number of drivers were able to make it even as far as 25 laps back in the first run, I mean, nothing really changed. You know, we went green from the start of the race to that 25th lap. We've gone green from that 25th lap to now. How is it that drivers are running out of fuel 3, 4, 5 laps earlier than what they would have projected to be running out of fuel at?
For a variety of reasons, but
Mr. Nelson's on pit road.
And Nelson's down to our final push to pass, I see.
And pitted from the 7th position, I do believe.
Actually, I looked at it here. Kobe Moore managed to run down all his push passes. He has got none left.
It's a good comeback, though, for Kobe Moore, who was back around 18th, 19th at the conclusion of the 5th lap, and now he's been able to work his way up to 13th. Been a very strong stay in the top 10 week after week, and it's like Watkins Glen's going to be able to struggle for him here today, but certainly a much better finish than what could have been.
See, these are the kind of races that build confidence, which is, yeah, you have adversity early on in the race, but it's just the ability to bounce back that really kind of rallies people and rallies you on board.
White flag has been displayed for Alex Van de Sant. He's been bridesmaid 2 times this season at the road courses. He's looking to be a back-to-back winner here at Watkins Glen and capture his first victory of the season. And even more importantly, he's trying to see if he can maybe start to whittle away at Robert Maleska III's points lead to make it a battle for the championship when these drivers get to Indianapolis for the 500 season finale. Through the final couple of corners, Alex Van de Sant headed for home. Checkered flag in the hand of the flagman. And finally, Alex Van de Sant's going to get it done at a road course this season as he'll take the Glen.
And easily, these results really do mimic last season's race at Watkins Glen. Last season, there was only, looks like, three, 4 people on the lead lap. And this year, it looks like there's 3 people who are going to finish on the lead lap.
And I mean, just to translate what 23 seconds looks like, when Van de Sant...
AJ Musselman ran out of gas.
Yes, he did. He wasn't even able to make it back to the start-finish line. He's going to finish 12th here tonight, and I believe he was en route for a 9th place finish if he had gotten back to the start-finish line.
Definitely a tough break. But obviously, Van de Sant, he has been working so hard all season, trying to finally break through and manages to get it done.
And you want to talk about a dominating performance, as I was going to say, when Van de Sant took the checkered flag and was down in turn 1, Robert Maleska III was just exiting out of the carousel in turn 5, headed down towards turn 6. Had that much ground between himself and Van de Sant to make up to try and take his 5th straight win of the season and 7th of the season here for the 91 team. And first time this season, Alex Van de Sant's going to get to burn it down.
To be honest, he probably could have ran out of gas halfway and just coasted back.
I think he did. I think he just did run out of gas. I think he did one small burnout, and that was all he could do.
But definitely, I've also got to bring up Eric Schaus. Man, I feel for him. That was almost the epitome of his race to lose.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, started on pole, was out in front for, let's be honest, about 9/10 of the race, and then ran out of fuel with about 7 laps to go. And again, I would love to kind of be a fly on the wall of some of these pit boxes to find out what it was that caused some of these drivers to run out of fuel so much earlier than what they were projected, because a number of drivers were able to make it 23 to 25 laps on that first run, and we saw drivers running out of fuel about 20 to 21 laps into that final run.
Absolutely. I'm just seeing some comments from drivers here of, it looks like the admins may have forgotten to turn the voice chat back on. I was wondering why everyone was so silent. Sounds like some drivers are trying to negotiate where the traffic to go, and that could have been some of the issues that we see today where some cars had some trouble negotiating traffic.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's everything that you would need in terms of communication, especially when you're trying to make passes at a track as tight as the corners are here at Watkins Glen. But third straight
I think
race.
I've done that to you before. I think I've done that to you before.
Communication, it's very important. But how about our top 3? I mean, we said, last 2 races at road courses, it was Van de Sant, Maleska III, and Matt Wagner that were the 3 drivers, and they finished 1st through 3rd here today. Different order, except for Matt Wagner. He's 3rd place for the 3rd straight time, but it's kind of the road course cream rises to the top, if you will, for these 3 drivers.
Absolutely, and I don't think we can even state this enough. Van de Sant obviously breaks through. Maleska, he almost managed to pull off another win, obviously in 2nd, but seeing those top 3 in points stay right together, that is very, very important for the rest of the season.
Jim Herrick, great run for him today. I think that's his best finish of the season as well. A driver that came into this race 13th in points. Yeah, that's his first top 5 of the season. What a place to have it happen here at the road course of Watkins Glen. And how about Nick DeGroot? I mean, this is a guy that came to pit road unscheduled back on lap 4. Had to pit before the conclusion of this race as well, but because so many drivers were uncertain if they were going to run out of fuel or not, he was able to take advantage and snipes the top 5.
Gal Brooks managed to have a nice recovery even with that pit stop. He still managed the top 10. Yeah,
where did Forsyth come from?
I mean, that just shows you that even if you do get taken out lap 1, turn 1, as long as you keep your head down, you're not out of this.
And of course, for Eric Schaus, I mean, obviously a heartbreak, but it is a bit of a comeback run as well because Schaus, after he had to teleport to pit road running out of fuel up there in the S's, he was back in the 13th position. He was able to pick up 5 spots between then and the conclusion of this race to still finish in the top 10 and 8th.
Absolutely. And just seeing a few comments by Eric Schaus. Fortunately, I guess he may have not realized his fuel tank was empty.
Wow. Well, it certainly took me by surprise, and I guess it took him by surprise as well as we look through the rest of the finishing results from today's event. A couple of drivers that have had really good seasons being put together that struggled here today. Charles Teed, he had a strong car but had to make a late pit stop, so he'll finish outside the top 10 and 11th. And Covey Moore is probably going to take the biggest hit in points. Been a solid top 10 driver week after week, but 14th here today as he was another driver caught up in an early incident. And then these drivers here, David Leclerc and Benjamin Combs, while they're listed 21st and 22nd, neither one of these drivers actually took the green flag to start tonight's race.
Oh, we just got clarification from Eric Schaus. He was so focused on the lap car, but he forgot the lap he needed to pit.
Oh, boy.
But that just shows you how difficult navigating traffic can be and how easily that can throw you off your rhythm. That can get your mindset on something else. And again, you don't have that crew chief in your ear to yell, hey, pit now, pit now.
The trouble with the road courses, no turn is the same as the upcoming or the previous turn. You've got traffic you have to deal with. You've got other drivers around you that you're battling for position to deal with. And oh yeah, by the way, you got to keep an eye on your fuel at the same time. So it's kind of a multitask for these drivers here at these road courses. But we'll be talking momentarily with Alex Van de Sant down in victory lane, as the good news is he's won this race. The bad news is the guy he's trying to run down for the points lead finished behind him in second place. Let's see if we can talk with the third place finisher, though. Third straight time he gets a third place finish at a road course. Let's see if we can get a word with Matt Wagner.
And if I can fish out Matt Wagner here.
Matt, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Howdy.
Going good. I mean, man, third straight top 3 finish here at a road course, and we saw you kind of shake it up a little bit in terms of strategy as well. One of the first drivers to elect to do the short pit there on that first round of green flag pit stops. Did that gain you anything, or if you could do it over again, would there be something different you do in terms of pit strategy?
I had a hard time catching the no good old Robert there. I was trying to get to his draft, and every time I tried to get near him, he'd just pull away even more. Fuel save was an option. 25 laps is extremely pushing it. And I was afraid that wouldn't work out to me. And it worked out for Alex. I mean, God, mighty. That's pretty good. But short pitting was probably the best and safest way for me to secure a nice little top 3 finish.
So I have to ask, I mean, I think I said this also at Coda. I mean, it was a little bit of a less chaotic race for you. I mean, were you hoping for a big accident up front and hope to get yourself in it, or?
No, I was just sitting there buying my time, just chilling right behind, chilling with Alex and Robert. I know we had pretty much the same speed, but Eric, I feel sorry for him. I really do. But the fuel strat didn't work out, but took my time, got to the finish.
All right, so Robert, you still got one more road course coming up at Silverstone. That's going to be in mid-April. You know, it's been you, the 317 and the 91 in the top 3, all 3 of our road course races this season. So are you kind of eyeing that 4th and final road course race for your chance to be able to pick up a road course win?
I'm eyeing on a W. What are you talking about? That's one of my favorite road courses to run. But I never run the IndyCar there. That is a new experience for me. So I'll be taking some practice laps there for sure. Love that track.
All right, well, Robert, congratulations. You had another strong outing here at a road course. Oh, yes, Matt, I'm sorry. I'm not sure where I got Robert from. I apologize.
You used to talk to Robert in the victory lane.
I think it might be.
Come on, boys. I understand. No, it's good. I feel you guys. Now, you guys are cool.
I've been around Matt long enough you think I'd remember that name. But
nah, you're cool, man. Matt. Hey, guys.
Congrats on a great performance here. And now we're going to let you do some shout-outs.
Robert Wagner here.
Robert Wagner.
I think that's a movie actor, actually.
Is it?
I think so.
I would like to, actually, I would dedicate you guys for calling me Robert up in the FRN.
Happens.
Yeah, it's all good. HyperX, Dark Horse Racing. They put on a good show. Butt Kicker. Love you guys. Hopefully, what is the next track? Phoenix. I think it's Phoenix, isn't it? No, it's not Phoenix. Kentucky.
Yeah, Kentucky is our next track.
Okay, gotcha. Hopefully a win at Kentucky. It's one of my favorites on Oval. So hopefully I'll get to talk to you guys at Victory Lane tomorrow. I mean, not tomorrow, but next week.
All right, that is Matt Wagner. He finishes third place here tonight at Watkins Glen. Congratulations there, Matt. We look forward to talking to Bluegrass State next week.
Later, dudes.
And if Robert Wagner's out there watching, he's still alive. He is a movie actor. If he's still watching, how you doing?
Did you really just Google that?
I did. I Googled it. He still lives. I knew he was a movie actor. I don't know why. Wagner. I heard Robert Wagner in my head.
Instead of Robert Wagner, how did I get Robert Mileska here?
I should be able to get the first name right this time. That's for sure. Robert, it's Matt and Seth up here in the F-Room booth. You got us?
Yeah, I got you, boys.
All right, man. You came off back-to-back victories at road courses at the Road America and Circuit of the Americas circuits. Here tonight at Watkins Glen, we were kind of wondering, could you go 3 for 3? What little more did you need? Because it looked like you were starting to make a charge there late. It was just the interval was too big.
I needed fuel or I needed someone to draft off of that first stint. Eric Schaus took off there that first run. And we're all four of us were just so close on time that I couldn't really catch him. So by the time I dropped back to Alex and Wagner, it was too late for me to save. So I had to save really hard there, which cost me like 20 seconds at first run.
Robert, I know it's a really small thing, but obviously we were kind of doing the math here, and I think Seth probably figured out if you won this race and you won Kentucky, you could easily have this championship locked up. I mean, that sting a little bit, knowing that, hey, this whole championship could have been over in those two races?
Yeah, but I gotta look at it as long as I'm getting these top 2, top 3 finishes, it's gonna be hard for these guys to catch me unless one person's winning every single week here on out. So as long as I'm not wrecking up in the Kench fence, I should be good to go.
Another thing we were talking about was Watkins Glen, while it is a shorter road course, it's a very tight road course, especially with the classic version. You guys don't have a whole lot of areas where the NASCAR has now established runoff areas. You don't have that here. You've got sand traps and grass waiting for you if you overdrive a corner. So with coming up on traffic, which you guys did a lot earlier here than you did back at COTA and Road America, how difficult was it to make it around said traffic?
Personally, I didn't have any big issues. I know me and Kobe were kind of close in the last corner, but other than that, I kind of just rode behind some people and saved some fuel, then passed them on one of the straights.
All right, well, Robert, the momentum continues for you nonetheless. You may not be in victory lane, but another solid podium finish for you here tonight at Watkins Glen. And we're now going to give the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, thank you guys for announcing. Thanks to HyperX for sponsoring the event. And yeah, we'll see if we can get a win next week, or at least continue this top 3 streak.
That's Robert Mileska III, second place here tonight at the Glen. And let's see if now we can go down to victory lane and talk with our first-time winner this season, but second time at Watkins Glen in the past 2 years, Alex Van Desan. Alex, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
I gotcha.
Oh, man, we've talked to you twice at road courses where you've come up just short of being able to pick up that checkered flag. How good does it feel here tonight to finally get that monkey off your back? And not only that, but come into a race that you were the defending winner and defend that race win.
Yeah, I'm 4 for 4 on this layout in some form of IndyCar now, so very happy about that. Yeah.
So I've got to ask the burning question in both of our minds, which is, obviously, if Eric Schaus didn't have the fuel mishap, what was your plan? What was your strategy?
So I knew some people were going to try and fuel save. Then the full pace lap we had at the start actually threw off my plan, and I assume it spooked others. So I wasn't sure during the race who was going to make it. I assumed Matt was saving, but then he pit on like lap 23 along with Eric, and so at that point I knew like there's no chance they're going to make it in or do it in one stop. So then I saw Robert pit with me, but he must have like hit the wall or was like panic saving or something because he dropped back like 10 seconds in the last few laps of that stint. So yeah, after that, it's just I know what number I need to hit to make it in clean air, and I hit it, and that was it. I knew Eric wasn't going to make it. As long as I could stay within like 20, 30 seconds of him, I'd be fine. So yeah.
So being up here in the booth, running the numbers, it was really confusing for me. The only driver or the only person that can really explain it would be a driver. So I'm going to ask you. We saw you be able to make it to the completion of lap 25, the halfway mark before you came to pit road. A lot of other drivers came to pit lane around that same vicinity, but we saw them running out of fuel with 5-6 laps to go. I mean, what changed in the first 25 laps to the final 25 laps that made it look like the fuel tank had gotten smaller?
Well, it was probably field spread. After the pit stops, it's going to shake everything up, so people are going to be more spread out. A lot of people won't have the draft. And actually, Eric was able to break the draft for me because I came out like right behind him, but I had to hit my number. And he was using push to pass on the straight the first few laps there. So, they're going to burn a lot more fuel. And if they're going to, maybe they saw me and Robert make it those 25 laps, they're like, oh, well, like they're going to one stop this week. Now I need to start saving, and then they just miss. But yeah, it's tough. It was. I actually asked for like if they could give us the full fuel tank last night because I knew I could make it, and I knew a couple other guys could probably make it on the one stop if we had the full tank. They were originally worried about tires at the end of a long stint, but there was no issue with that.
Well, Alex, as we've stated the last two times we interviewed you at the road courses, we just get the feeling you were so close to getting that road course victory. You do it here tonight. Unfortunately, it looked like you didn't have enough fuel to be able to do a complete burnout, but you got to at least make a little bit of smoke there on the front straightaway. Congratulations. We're going to let you do some shout-outs now.
Yeah, big thanks to, well, first off, my teammates. We got all 4 drivers in the top 10, which first time this season, so that's a huge achievement. Jim, Craig, and Krista did a great job there. They all had a fuel saving strategy as well. And then, for the sponsors, big thanks to Happy Trails Chili Company, available on Amazon now, as well as elmseegear.com.
That is Alex Van Desant. He is a winner in Season 3 in the Dark Horse IndyCar Series presented by HyperX as he takes the checker flag here tonight at the Glen. Congratulations there, Alex. Maybe we'll see you go back-to-back next week when we go to Kentucky.
Yeah, hopefully. That's a fun track, so I'm looking forward to it.
All right, so the Watkins Glen road course race is in the books. Another first-time winner here in Season 3, and the thing of it is, though, Matt, as I said, Robert Maliska III, he finished in second. So even though Van Desant does get that victory, the points that he could have gained on Maliska III are going to be minimal at best. So, as Maliska said, as long as he just keeps racking off these podium finishes, he could still have this thing wrapped up way early on before the conclusion of the season end.
Realistically, Van Desant and also Matt Wagner really need to be perfect. They need to pretty much be spotless 1-2. Now, they need a little bit of assistance with Maliska actually having some down weeks, maybe having an issue here and there. They can still get back in this, but they're going to need some help.
We've only seen one race, to my knowledge, this season where Robert Maliska III ran into problems, and that was back at Phoenix. Other than that, his season has been absolutely flawless, and it'll be interesting to see what these drivers do next week, because we know of the somewhat unique configuration and the somewhat progressive banking, especially over in 3 and 4 at Kentucky. Going to be interesting to see what these drivers do when they take to that speedway.
Definitely, just seeing how the track works and what lines are prevalent. Obviously, bottom line comes to mind first, but I've been noticing the top line getting a little bit faster at Kentucky, so I'd be interested to see what lines these drivers are going to be taking.
Absolutely. I think another thing here too is, other drivers might be in the mindset of realizing that Robert Mileska III, as long as he remains consistent, he's going to win this championship. So I think a lot of these drivers now are looking at the speedway races we got coming up, including next week in Kentucky, and saying, hey, this is a shot for me to be able to go to victory lane. I'm not in the hunt for the championship, so I'm going to go all out, try and see if I can get that checkered flag.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really that time where it's, go broke or go home. I mean, it's the end of the season. Really, Mileska has a chance to lock this thing up. So, I mean, if you're not coming with your A game, you're not coming with the intent to win every race, you could easily just end up losing your way out of the championship.
Well, it should be a good one next week when we head to the bluegrass state of Kentucky for another 1.5 mile race here this season, the Dark Horse IndyCar Series. But Alex Van de Sant continues to celebrate in victory lane. He picks up his second straight victory here at the Watkins Glen International Raceway and his first win of season 3. Matt, it's been a good one here tonight. We kind of expected to maybe see the yellow. Fortunately, we didn't. And it really came down to some interesting fuel strategy at the end as well.
Again, a lot of these road course races, some people call them boring. I call them interesting because they just show how different pit strategy is. And again, someone who looks like they have the race extremely locked up like Schaus ended up losing.
And I think you hit the nail right on the head as well earlier on too, when you said just how aerodynamically dependent it was going to be here today. Well, I didn't even think of the fact that the draft was going to help these drivers as far as their fuel mileage was concerned when they got spread out. It now makes sense that they would only be able to go so far in clean air than they would in the draft of somebody else. So good job on making that call there.
Again, we're always used to cars with the aerodynamic properties of a brick. So when we get to something with a little bit more aerodynamics, that's when a lot of the more kind of pit strategy comes out.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a good one here tonight, Matt. Appreciate you joining me in the booth.
It's always nice to be here.
Thanks to everyone that tuned in tonight. We hope you guys enjoyed our coverage of the Dark Horse IndyCar Series presented by HyperX. We'll see you guys next week when these drivers take to Kentucky Speedway as we close in on the end of this season. Race 12 will have the green flag fly next Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For Matthew Rodriguez, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your night as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flat Out Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flat Out Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flat Out Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flat Out Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.